Let me tell you something that might just shift the way you see the world. You see, the most powerful version of you is the one who doesn't chase, doesn't beg, and doesn't react to chaos. It's the version of you that sits still in the storm, calm in your soul and confident in your silence. That strength, that peace, that's where true attraction begins. Not in how loud you are, but in how deeply you trust yourself when the world tries to shake you. People are drawn to mystery, they're pulled toward peace. When you become detached, not cold but free, you stop looking for validation and start commanding respect. When you're non-reactive, not numb, but in control, you shift the energy in the room just by being there. Because real power doesn't shout, it whispers with certainty. Real confidence doesn't flinch. It watches, learns, and chooses when to speak. That's the kind of presence that leaves people thinking about you long after you've left the room. So if you've ever felt like you are too quiet, too distant, too still, don't mistake that for weakness. That might just be your superpower. Now let's talk about why detachment and emotional control make you not just stronger, but magnetic. Let me break this down for you, because too many people confuse detachment with indifference. They think stepping back means you've stopped caring. They think silence means defeat. But listen, detachment doesn't mean your heart is empty. It means your soul is full. It means you've filled up with so much peace, so much self-respect, that you no longer feel the need to beg for what's already yours by worth. You're not walking away because you're cold. You're walking away because you're warm enough inside that you no longer wait for someone else to give you heat. That's power. That's what makes a person unshakable. Because when you know how to let go of what you can't control, when you stop clinging, you start owning. You own your energy, your attention, your future. And there is nothing more powerful than a person who has mastered the art of letting go. There was a time you used to explain yourself to people who never even cared to understand. There was a time you used to bend until you broke, just to keep others comfortable while your spirit screamed in silence. And now you understand detachment isn't about closing your heart, it's about protecting it. It's about guarding your peace like a treasure, because that's exactly what it is. Detachment is waking up in the morning and not needing validation to feel worthy. It's walking through your day not chasing approval, but bringing value just by existing. You no longer seek to be understood because you finally understand yourself. That kind of inner security, that doesn't come from the outside world. That's built in the fire of self-awareness, forged in the silence of nights where no one applauded, but you still stood tall. That's where real power is born. People will tell you that caring too much is strength, and yes, compassion is a beautiful thing, but over-giving, over-explaining, overextending yourself for people who don't pour back into you, that's not strength, that's depletion, that's abandonment of your own soul. But when you learn to detach, when you learn to pull your energy back, not to punish, but to preserve, you start to feel whole again. You feel light. You start to breathe differently, walk differently, speak differently. You no longer operate out of fear of losing someone. You act from love, self-love. And let me tell you something, when you start loving yourself at that level, the world starts responding to you differently. They feel the shift. You're no longer accessible to confusion, no longer available for drama. That energy, it's magnetic. That peace, it's rare. And anything rare is valuable. You ever notice how people chase what they can't control? That's because control is rooted in fear. But when you're detached, you no longer need to control. You no longer need to know the outcome. You trust the process because you trust yourself. You trust that whatever leaves wasn't meant to stay, and whatever stays didn't need to be forced. That's not emptiness. That's confidence. That's emotional maturity. See, most people are trapped in cycles of reaction. Someone disrespects them and they lash out. Someone ghosts them and they fall apart. But not you. Not anymore. You've outgrown the need to be triggered. You've outgrown the need to respond because you know who you are now, and you don't need anyone else's confusion to define your clarity. That's the calm after the storm. The version of you that no longer breaks when someone else walks away. And here's the real truth. When you start detaching, people get uncomfortable. They were used to you being available, used to you being reactive. Your silence starts speaking louder than your words ever did. It makes people reflect. It makes them realize what they lost. And it's not about playing games. It's about reclaiming your power, because for too long, your worth was tied to someone else's opinion. For too long, your mood depended on their behavior. Now you've cut the strings. You're not a puppet. You're a person with value, and you stopped offering discounts. You're not proving yourself anymore. You're being yourself. And that version of you, the one that walks away from chaos, not because you're weak, but because you're wise, that version of you is dangerous. That's the version they can't control, can't predict, can't manipulate. And that's the version the world respects. People confuse attachment with love. But love that requires you to lose yourself isn't love. It's dependency. And dependency will drain your spirit dry. You know better now. You've learned the hard way. Love doesn't suffocate. It doesn't require you to sacrifice your peace, your values, your self-respect. Detachment teaches you that real love starts with you. You can love deeply and still choose yourself. You can care fiercely and still set boundaries. Detachment allows you to show up fully without losing yourself in the process. And when someone tries to take advantage of your kindness, your silence becomes the lesson. Your absence becomes the message. That's not bitterness, that's wisdom. You're done proving, you're done chasing, you're done begging to be seen, because now you see yourself. And that vision, that's clearer than it's ever been. You start to realize that detachment doesn't mean isolation, it means freedom. You're no longer imprisoned by your emotions. You feel them, but they don't control you. You experience them, but they don't define you. That separation, that space, that distance, it gives you clarity. You stop confusing pain with purpose. You stop thinking that your suffering earns your love, and suddenly peace becomes your baseline. You don't crave attention anymore, you crave alignment. You don't beg for closure, you create your own. And the world starts to notice. They don't know what changed, but they can feel it. You're not the same, and that's a good thing, because becoming someone who chooses peace over performance, that's the real glow up. That's when you truly rise. Don't let the world trick you into believing that your silence is weakness. Don't let them guilt you into shrinking. Detachment isn't about being passive. It's about being powerful in the shadows. It's about choosing not to react because your energy is too precious to waste. And yes, people will misread you. They'll say you've changed. And you have. You've evolved. You've stopped entertaining what doesn't feed your soul. You've stopped arguing with people committed to misunderstanding you. That shift is sacred. That shift is maturity. You're no longer moved by noise. You're moved by peace. You're not triggered by chaos. You rise above it. And that energy, that's rare. That's the kind of power they don't teach you about. You earn it. You grow into it. You become it through fire and faith. There's a level of calm that comes with not needing anyone to complete you. You begin to see clearly who's real and who's just loud. You begin to attract from abundance, not lack. You don't chase love. You become love. You don't chase opportunity, you attract it with your energy. Detachment doesn't mean you stop connecting with others. It means you stop connecting with people who drain you. It means you finally value your peace enough to protect it. That's the shift. And yes, it can be lonely at first. But the kind of peace you find on the other side of detachment, that's worth everything you had to walk away from. That's worth every unanswered message, every closed door, every late night cry. Because it brought you here. To this version of you, whole, rooted, ready. And now, you don't just walk into rooms. You command them. You don't just speak, you influence. Because your energy is no longer scattered. It's focused. And when your energy is focused, you become unstoppable. You become attractive in the deepest sense of the word. People want to know your secret. They wonder how you stay calm in chaos, how you smile without needing attention, how you walk away without burning bridges. And the answer is simple. You detached. Not from life, not from love, but from anything and anyone who made you question your worth. You detach from what dimmed your light, and now you shine, not to prove anything, but because that's just who you are now. There is a quiet strength in the person who doesn't react. The one who doesn't flinch when they're insulted. The one who doesn't scream back when someone disrespects them. That kind of strength doesn't come overnight. It comes from pain, from healing, from sitting in the silence long enough to understand yourself. When you don't react, people think you're passive. They think you're weak. But they have no idea that holding back takes more strength than lashing out. They don't know how hard it is to bite your tongue when everything in you wants to correct the disrespect. But you've grown, you've evolved, and now you understand your reaction is your power. And when you give it away to every person who tries to pull you into their chaos, you become a puppet on their strings. But when you choose stillness, when you choose calm, you become the one holding the pen. You're not acting out someone else's script, you're writing your own. It's easy to explode. It's easy to react. What's hard is to observe, to pause, to breathe. That takes discipline. That takes self-control. And most people never reach that level. They spend their lives on emotional autopilot, letting every outside event dictate their mood, their actions, their words. But you've chosen a different path. You've chosen a path of mastery. And mastery is never loud, it's quiet, it's controlled, it's intentional, it's knowing that your piece is worth more than proving your point. You don't need to clap back, you don't need to get even, because you're already ahead, you're already free. And when someone tries to provoke you and you don't take the bait, that's power, that's dominance, not over them, but over yourself. Because the person who can master their emotions masters their world. Reactivity is a sign of chaos within. It's a reflection of unhealed wounds. People explode because they haven't dealt with their pain. They project, they blame, they lash out. But you've been in that place. And you made a decision, never again. You made a choice to stop letting pain speak for you. You let your healing speak now. And healing sounds like silence, like deep breaths, like walking away from nonsense because you value your energy too much to waste it. You don't need to be the loudest. You don't need to win every argument. Because the loudest person in the room isn't always the strongest, it's usually the most wounded. You've outgrown the need to fight for your value. You've already claimed it. And that makes you unstoppable. Because nothing and no one can move you unless you allow it. People will say things just to get a reaction. That's how they feel powerful, by making you lose your cool. But when you stay calm, when you smile in the face of provocation, when you walk away without a word, you strip their power away. You remind them that they don't control your emotions. You do. And that realization, that breaks people. Because when you used to react, they had control. But now you're different. You've developed armor, not made of stone, but of wisdom. You don't need to defend yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You don't argue with ignorance. You don't wrestle with pettiness. You've elevated, and people feel that shift. It intimidates some, it inspires others, but either way, you don't flinch. There's a level of peace you reach where chaos no longer excites you, where drama no longer pulls you in, where gossip sounds like noise. That's the level where non-reactivity lives. It's not about suppressing emotions. It's about managing them. It's about having the emotional intelligence to feel without exploding, to listen without needing to respond. That's when people start asking, what changed in you? And you don't even have to answer. Because the answer is in your posture, in your eyes, in your silence. You've shifted from being easily moved to being grounded, rooted, like a tree that no longer bends with every gust of wind. That's what non-reactivity is. It's emotional rootedness. It's spiritual confidence. It's power wrapped in poise. Think about all the times you reacted out of pain, out of fear, out of insecurity. What did it get you? Regret, guilt, broken relationships. Now think about the moments you held your peace, the moments you took a breath, the moments you chose grace. Those are the moments you stepped into mastery. Because reactivity is about ego, but stillness Stillness is about purpose. It's about choosing what serves you, not what strokes your pride. You're no longer in a war with your emotions. You've made peace with them. You've learned to sit with your triggers, not act on them. You've learned to listen to your emotions without letting them drive the car. That's maturity. That's leadership. That's real strength. The world is reactive. The media, the culture, the noise, it's all designed to trigger you, to make you feel small unless you fight back. But what they don't teach is that the greatest power is in restraint. Anyone can swing. Anyone can shout. But not everyone can stay still when the fire comes. You can. You've been through enough storms to know that peace is your anchor. And when the winds come, when people try to provoke you, when the situation screams for you to explode, you lean into that anchor. You remind yourself, I don't need to prove who I am. I know who I am. And that identity, that truth, that inner foundation, that's what makes you resilient. That's what makes you dangerous in the best way. People will try to push you, test you, see what makes you break. That's not about you. That's about them. They're trying to shake your stability because they don't have any of their own. But what they don't know is that you've already been broken and rebuilt yourself stronger. You've already cried the tears that needed crying. You've already faced the demons that haunted you. So now when they come with disrespect, with games, with manipulation, they will not move. You move, not because you don't feel, but because you do feel, and you've learned how to master the fire inside. That's inner power. That's why they can't figure you out. You don't feed their chaos. You don't match their low frequency. You rise above it. You walk through it untouched. That's what mastery looks like. There will come a day when someone you love will disappoint you, when someone close to you will test your patience, and you'll feel that old urge to react, to confront, to explode. But something in you will pause. Something in you will whisper, this is not worth my peace. And in that moment, you will choose growth. You will choose your future over your feelings. That's when you know you've transformed, because non-reactivity isn't just about staying calm. It's about choosing the bigger picture. It's about saying, I love me enough to not go back to who I used to be. And that choice, that decision in the middle of the storm, that's the mark of true emotional greatness. And let me tell you, people are drawn to that. They are drawn to that level of inner stability, to that quiet confidence. They don't always understand it, but they respect it. They may even fear it, because nothing is more intimidating than someone who is not easily moved. And nothing is more attractive than someone who can stay soft and kind, yet firm and unshakable. That's who you've become. And that version of you doesn't react to everything. That version doesn't flinch when triggered. That version observes, evaluates, and chooses from wisdom, not wounds. That version lives in alignment. And when you live in alignment, you don't need noise. You are the presence. You are the calm. You are the strength people feel before you even speak. There comes a point in your life when you realize you don't need to explain yourself anymore. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. You don't need to argue to prove a point. Your silence says everything they need to know. When someone disrespects you, silence is a statement. When someone underestimates you, silence is your preparation. And when someone tries to pull you into a war of words, silence is your strength. People think silence means weakness, but only those who've never walked through fire misunderstand stillness. Real strength isn't in shouting. It's in restraint. It's in knowing you could destroy someone with your words, but you choose not to. That's maturity. That's growth. That's power that no one can see, but everyone can feel. You don't have to respond to everything. Just because someone invites you into conflict doesn't mean you have to accept. Every argument is an invitation to lower yourself to step into chaos. But silence is the higher road. It's choosing to rise above. You're not ignoring them. You're protecting yourself. You're choosing peace over pettiness. That doesn't mean you're passive. It means you've realized your energy is sacred and not everyone deserves access to it. Silence doesn't mean you're losing the argument. It means you're done arguing with people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You're done speaking to ears that only listen to reply, not to understand. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. You've spent years trying to explain your heart to people who never took time to understand it. You've exhausted your voice defending yourself in rooms full of people who never saw your value. And eventually you got tired. Tired of trying to convince people of who you are. Tired of fighting to be heard. And that tiredness, that wasn't defeat. That was your awakening. That was the moment you stepped into your power and realized silence is a boundary. It's how you say, I no longer participate in this energy. It's how you remove yourself from disrespect without giving it more fuel. And now every time you choose silence, you're choosing self-respect. You're choosing wisdom. You're choosing to guard your peace. Some people need you to argue with them to feel validated. They poke at you, they prod, they throw words like knives, hoping you'll bleed, hoping you'll lose your temper. But when you give them silence, it cuts deeper than any insult ever could. Because silence shows you're unbothered. It shows you've outgrown their games. And nothing frustrates a manipulative person more than someone they can't get a reaction from. You rob them of their power when you don't play their game. You show them you're no longer dancing to their chaos. Your silence screams, you don't control me anymore. And that message, that truth, that calm refusal to engage, it's louder than 1,000 shouted words. Silence is where you heal. It's where you recalibrate. It's where you get back in touch with yourself. Because sometimes speaking is a distraction. Arguing is an escape. You're so busy defending yourself that you forget to protect your peace. But silence gives you space to breathe, to think, to return to your center. It reminds you that your worth isn't up for debate. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your healing, your growth, or your distance. The old version of you would have tried to make them understand, but the evolved version of you just walks away. Not to be cold, but to be whole. Not to be cruel, but to be free. There's wisdom in silence that no argument can match. Because when you argue, your energy is reactive. But when you're silent, your energy becomes reflective. You're not defending, you're observing. You're letting people reveal who they are without interruption. That's how you see the truth. That's how you gain clarity. When someone shows you their character, you don't need to confront it. You just need to watch. Because patterns don't lie. And silence gives you the space to see what words try to cover up. People can manipulate conversations, but they can't manipulate consistency. And when you go quiet, when you stop explaining and just observe, silence is not weakness, it's discipline. It's training. It's you knowing when to speak and when to hold back. You don't need to respond to every jab. You don't need to clap back at every insult. Sometimes the greatest clap back is your absence, your distance, your elevation. Let them talk. Let them twist your words. Let them lie. The truth doesn't need defending. It defends itself in time. Your silence shows that you trust yourself enough not to engage. That's confidence. That's emotional wealth. That's choosing to stay in alignment instead of stepping into their dysfunction. And trust me, silence is something they never forget. Words fade, but the silence of someone who could have destroyed you with truth, but chose peace instead, that echoes for it. It takes emotional maturity to sit in silence, to let the storm rage around you and not flinch, to be misunderstood and not retaliate, to be lied on and not chase truth down the hallway. That's not weakness. That's transformation. That's you choosing your higher self. That's you realizing that not every battle is worth your breath. You've fought enough battles to know now peace is the real prize. You're not looking to be right anymore. You're looking to be free. And freedom looks like walking away. It looks like sitting in the quiet and knowing I don't need to respond to prove my worth. You've moved from ego to essence, from reaction to reflection. That's what silence is. Let them wonder why you didn't fight back. Let them replay the conversation in their head, waiting for a response that never came. That silence, that stays with them because they were expecting the old you, the reactive you, the triggered you. But that version of you no longer exists, and they feel it. Your silence forces them to sit with themselves, to question their motives, to face the energy they brought. Your silence becomes a mirror, and not everyone can handle their own reflection. That's why they need your reaction, to distract them from their own discomfort. But when you give them nothing, when you respond with peace instead of pain, that's when you truly win. You don't need to fight for peace. You become peace. You embody it. You carry it like armor into every space. That's the power of silence. It follows you. It protects you. It speaks for you. And over time, people begin to respect you, not for how loud you can be, but for how composed you remain when everything around you is loud. That's real presence. That's unshakable energy. That's what makes you magnetic, because when the world is screaming and you're still, people lean in. They want to know your secret. But you don't have to say a word. Your peace says it all. Your silence speaks volumes. There's a moment in life when you realize that not everyone deserves access to you. Not everyone should be allowed into your space, into your energy, into your heart. And the moment you realize that, you begin to build boundaries. You stop feeling guilty for saying no. You stop apologizing for protecting your peace. Because the truth is, when you love yourself, you start moving different. You don't entertain what drains you. You don't tolerate what disrespects you. You don't explain your standards. You live by them. That's when people start to notice. That's when they stop taking you for granted. Because people may not like your boundaries at first, but they'll respect them. And if they don't, then they were only benefiting from your lack of them. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow. Every time you say yes to what you hate, you teach the world that your comfort doesn't matter. Every time you laugh off disrespect to keep the peace, you tell people it's okay to hurt you. But the day you draw that line, the day you say no more, everything shifts. People will resist it at first. They'll push. They'll test it. But that's not your cue to back down. That's your cue to stand firm. You're not being mean. You're being clear. You're being intentional about who gets your time, your trust, your attention. And that's not selfish. That's wisdom. That's ownership of your life. And people may not clap for it, but deep down, they'll respect it. Because deep down, everyone wants to know where the line is. Boundaries are not walls. They're doors with locks. You still love, you still care, you still give, but you give with wisdom. You stop pouring into people who poke holes in your cup. You stop stretching yourself to fit into places you've outgrown. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you're cold. It means you're finally warm to yourself. It means you stop betraying your own needs to meet everyone else's. And yes, it's going to cost you some people. Some will call you distant. Others will call you difficult. But don't flinch. Don't explain. Because the people who truly love you will adjust. They'll rise to meet your standards. They'll honor your limits. And the ones who walk away, they were only committed to the version of you with no boundary. You have to understand, some people only liked you because you had none. You were easy to manipulate, easy to access, easy to drain. And now that you're standing up for yourself, they call it attitude. They say you've changed. Yes, you have. You've grown. You've evolved. You've realized your time is valuable. Your peace is priceless. And your soul deserves protection. Don't let guilt talk you out of growth. Don't let people weaponize your kindness against you. You can be loving and firm. You can be gentle and strong. You don't have to choose between being respected and being kind. Real boundaries allow both. They create space where real love can exist. Not love built on obligation or fear, but love built on respect and truth. Most people aren't used to being told no, especially by someone who used to say yes all the time. So when you shift, when you start honoring your own voice, it shakes the ground under them. That's okay. You're not here to make others comfortable at the cost of your own peace. You're not here to be everything to everyone. That's a recipe for emptiness. You are here to walk in your truth, to protect your energy, to be in alignment with who you really are. That starts with boundaries. Boundaries are how you say, I matter too. They're how you show up for yourself, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. And the more consistent you become, the more people begin to understand that the old access to you has expired. Respect doesn't come from being available all the time. It comes from being aligned. It comes from knowing your worth so deeply that you no longer entertain confusion. You no longer chase closure. You no longer keep doors open out of fear. You choose clarity. You choose standards. You choose distance when energy isn't right. And over time, people begin to treat you differently, not because you demanded it, but because you trained them with your behavior. You stopped explaining and started demonstrating. You stopped begging and started walking. That's what boundaries do. They turn your presence into something people value, because now they know if they don't respect you, they lose you. It's not about being cold. It's about not shrinking anymore. It's about realizing you have the right to say, this doesn't feel good to me. You're allowed to exit conversations that drain you. You're allowed to walk away from relationships that confuse you. You're allowed to choose environments that nourish you. That's not avoidance. That's alignment. That's not selfishness. That's self-love. And when people see that you honor yourself, they either step up or step aside. Either way, you win, because you're no longer choosing people who need you to betray yourself to keep them close. You're choosing you. And that's not arrogance. That's healing. The truth is, people trust those with boundaries more than those without. They may not say it, but deep down they know. When you protect your space, it means you protect theirs too. When you're honest about what you can give, you don't overextend and build resentment. Boundaries create honesty. They create balance. They create safety. And people feel that. They might resist it first, but once they see you're consistent, they start to admire you. Not because you say yes to everything, but because when you say yes, it's real. It's whole. It's from the heart. Boundaries make your presence more meaningful. They give your love more weight, because it's no longer given out of obligation, but out of true choice. Let this be the season where you stop over-explaining your no, where you stop proving why you need space. Let your growth speak. Let your silence teach. Let your actions show what you will and will not accept. You don't need to yell to be heard. You don't need to argue to be right. You just need to live your truth and let the wrong people remove themselves. Let your boundaries do the sorting. The ones meant for you will honor your energy. They'll lean into your standards, not run from them. And you'll finally feel the freedom that comes when respect meets peace. And that's the quiet shift that happens when you set boundaries. You start attracting people who don't just want access to you, but want connection with you. People who don't just take, but also pour back in. People who don't just show up when it's convenient, but respect the honor of being in your life. You stop surviving relationships and start thriving in them. You stop sacrificing your identity just to be accepted. You stop bending to fit and start standing tall in truth. Because at the end of the day, people don't respect people who always say yes. They respect those who know when to say no. And that respect, that self-worth, that peace, that's the reward of every boundary you set and stand by. There's something deeply powerful about not being so easily read, about not laying all your cards on the table. In a world where everyone is busy broadcasting every move, every emotion, every detail of their life, your silence becomes magnetic. Your calm becomes intriguing. When people can't predict your next step, they lean in. They watch. They wonder. And that mystery becomes strength. See, when you move in silence, people are forced to respect the parts of you they can't access. They're no longer playing you, they're studying you. Not because you're hiding, but because you've learned not everything needs to be revealed. When you withhold, you protect your energy. You conserve your power. You become less available. And in that distance, you become more valuable. Being unpredictable isn't about playing games. It's about no longer being a puppet to the expectations of others. You don't move because someone wants a reaction. You don't speak just to fill silence. You move when it's time. You speak with intention. You've outgrown the need to defend every decision or justify every feeling. And because of that, you become a mystery. People begin to notice that they can't pull strings like they used to. They can't provoke you. They can't manipulate you. You're no longer reactive, you're strategic. You've mastered the art of pausing, observing, moving when it benefits your peace. That kind of control, that makes people uneasy in the best way. Because it means you're no longer someone they can play with. You've graduated to a higher level of self-awareness. The predictable person is easy to control, easy to access, easy to manipulate. They live in patterns that people learn and exploit. But when you become unpredictable, you become a moving target. No one can anticipate your next shift. They can't prepare to trap you because you're not showing your hand. You've realized that consistency in values doesn't require predictability in actions. You can be solid and grounded in who you are and still remain elusive in how you move. That's what makes you powerful. You don't owe everyone an explanation. You don't have to be on call for the world's curiosity. And when you stop feeding people your energy so freely, they either walk away or lean in, fascinated by your silence, hooked by your self-possession. Mystery doesn't mean being fake, it means being selective. It means knowing the difference between being known and being understood. You stop broadcasting your struggles to people who only want gossip. You stop announcing your goals to people who secretly doubt you. You no longer feel the urge to post every moment, respond to every attack, prove your worth to every critic, because you've found peace in privacy. You've found power in quiet. You've discovered that the less they know, the less they can distort. And the less they can predict, the more they have to respect. Because mystery protects you from assumptions. It creates space for truth. And that space becomes sacred. It becomes your edge in a noisy world that overshares and underthinks. When people can't figure you out, they stop assuming they know you. And when they stop assuming, they start listening. They start observing. And for the first time, they approach you with caution, not because you're intimidating, but because you're intentional. They sense the difference between someone who needs attention and someone who commands it. You're not performing. You're not seeking validation. You're just present, aware, grounded. And that unsettles people who were used to the old version of you, the one who explained, defended, over-inherited, and overextended. You're no longer in the business of being understood by everyone. You're in the business of preserving your soul. That mystery is not emptiness, it's depth. And only those who've earned your trust will get access to it. See, when you're unpredictable, you're harder to control. You're harder to corner. People can't use your past behavior to manipulate your present. You've broken your own patterns. You've stepped out of the routine that once made you predictable and easy to disarm. Now your moves are different. Your mindset is stronger. Your silence is louder. And that shift forces people to engage you with more care, more thought, more respect, because now there's a cost to proximity. There's value in your presence. There's weight in your words. You're no longer everywhere for everyone. You show up where you're valued, not where you're tolerated. And that unpredictability, that restraint, it teaches people to stop taking your access for granted. People love familiarity, even in dysfunction. They get comfortable knowing what buttons to push. But once you become mysterious, once you stop giving away your emotional patterns, they lose that power. Your peace becomes less about others and more about you. You stop reacting and you start responding. You stop explaining and you start observing. People who thrived on your chaos suddenly find themselves out of place because you're no longer predictable. You're no longer emotionally exposed. You've put yourself back in control of your own narrative. And when someone can't predict your response, they're forced to approach you with care. They have to think twice before crossing a boundary. That kind of presence, that's what makes you untouchable. Being mysterious doesn't mean you're unavailable. It means you've become intentional with your availability. You've realized that not everyone deserves to know what's in your heart, what's on your mind, or what's next in your journey. That secrecy becomes sacred. It's not loneliness, it's discernment. You're choosing what to share and with whom. You've stopped bleeding for people who wouldn't even hand you a Band-Aid. You've stopped narrating your every move for people who clap when you fail. You've stopped giving play-by-plays to people who don't even watch the game with good intentions. And the moment you started holding back, they started noticing. Not because you became less, but because you became more careful, more powerful, more self-aware. Now, people who once thought they had you figured out start second-guessing themselves. They don't know what you'll say. They don't know what you're planning. They don't even know if they still have the same place in your life. And that uncertainty, that forces them to treat you with more care, more intention. That's the power of mystery. You stop being a convenience. You become a presence that must be earned, not because you're playing hard to get, but because you finally understand your worth. You're no longer handing yourself out for free. You've realized that mystery is a magnet. It doesn't repel, it attracts. The right ones are drawn to it. The wrong ones, they fall away confused, frustrated, powerless. So when you walk into a room, you no longer speak to prove you belong. You observe, you move with purpose, and you let your energy speak before your words ever do. You become someone people watch, not someone they play. Someone they wonder about, not someone they can predict. Because now your silence has meaning. Your absence has power. Your next move is your best kept secret. And that's what keeps people intrigued. That's what keeps them respectful. That's what sets you apart. You've mastered the art of being seen without being exposed. Known but not understood. Present but not predictable. And that, my friend, is a power few ever reach. Because it takes discipline, restraint, and a deep love for yourself. But when you do, you don't chase respect. You attract it. There comes a time in life when you stop searching for someone to complete you and start becoming someone who completes themselves. That's when the game changes. Because when you're whole, when you've done the work, faced the pain, healed the wounds, and accepted yourself fully, you no longer seek love from a place of lack. You're not craving attention to feel valuable. You're not chasing validation to feel worthy. You don't attract from a starving soul. You attract from abundance. And people can feel that. They can feel when you walk into a room with peace in your heart, clarity in your mind, and no desperate need to be chosen. That kind of presence, that kind of calm, it's magnetic, it's powerful, it's rare. See, when you're empty, you beg for what you should be building. You settle for crumbs because you haven't tasted the richness of self-love. You hold on to broken people because you're afraid of facing your own brokenness. But when you become whole, you stop begging and start choosing. You stop pleasing and start aligning. You don't just let anyone walk into your life. You filter them through the lens of your healed soul. Because now you know what you bring to the table. You know your worth isn't tied to someone else's opinion. You know that your peace is too expensive to be traded for shallow affection. And that strength, that confidence, it's not loud. It's quiet. It doesn't shout. It radiates. And people feel it. Wholeness changes the way you speak, the way you move, the way you love. You no longer use relationships to fill voids. You bring fullness into the connection. You're not clinging to someone to escape your loneliness. You've made peace with being alone, and because of that, you choose people from love, not fear. You don't need saving. You've already rescued yourself. And now anyone who walks beside you must walk in truth, in respect, in mutual growth. There's no space for chaos in a life that's been built on peace. No room for games in a heart that's already found its purpose. That's how you attract from wholeness. You create an energy field that says, I'm not looking to be completed. I'm looking to be complemented. And the people you attract when you're whole, they're different. They don't want to use you. They want to grow with you. They're not drawn to your wounds. They're drawn to your wisdom. They don't love you for what you can give. They love you for who you are. Because your energy speaks before your words do. Your self-respect, your boundaries, your joy, it all radiates from the inside out. And that kind of energy repels the wrong one. It confuses manipulators. It frustrates users. But it captivates those who are walking the same path of growth. That's why being whole is your best protection and your strongest attraction. It filters your life. It elevates your standards. And it ensures that what you draw in is a reflection of your healing, not your hurt. When you're whole, you don't chase people who walk away. You don't beg to be understood. You don't lower your standards just to feel something, because you've already filled your own cup. You've sat in the silence, battled your demons, cried your tears, and found your strength. So now you no longer move from desperation. You move from discernment. You're not easily shaken, not easily fooled, not easily impressed, because you know what it took to become who you are. You've built a home within yourself, and you don't let just anyone walk through that door. That's what makes you powerful. That's what makes you different. You've made your soul a sanctuary. And now only the worthy are allowed in. When you attract from wholeness, your relationships become healthier. Your friendships become real. Your connections become rooted in depth, not drama. You no longer tolerate half effort or half love. You're not interested in being someone's option. You're looking for mutual elevation, because you've stopped treating yourself like a backup plan. You've stopped waiting to be seen, chosen, or saved. You've already done that for yourself. And now anyone who steps into your life must come correct, not perfect, but real. Not flawless, but honest. Not flashy, but faithful. Because you've outgrown shallow waters. You've learned to swim in depth. And that kind of maturity, it makes you attractive in ways that beauty never could. Wholeness also changes how you carry rejection. You don't break down when someone walks away. You bless them and keep moving. You understand that rejection isn't always a loss. Sometimes it's protection. And because you're no longer seeking someone to fix your cracks, you don't crumble when things fall apart. You rebuild. You reflect. You keep growing. Because your identity isn't built on someone staying. It's built on the truth that you are already enough. You are already loved. You are already chosen by the one who made you. That kind of confidence can't be faked. It can't be bought. It can't be taken away. It's earned through fire, through pain, through rising over and over again. And now it shines through you. People sense when you're whole. They notice that you don't react the same way. You don't entertain nonsense. You don't lose yourself for love. You stand your ground, not from ego, but from peace. Because peace is your new standard. Peace is your new lifestyle. You're not looking for excitement, you're looking for alignment. You're not obsessed with attention, you're committed to purpose. That's why you don't move fast anymore. You're intentional. You're thoughtful. You're measured. You've learned that not everyone deserves access to your time, your energy, your spirit. And when people realize they can't shake you, can't rush you, can't confuse you, they begin to admire you. Not because you said something, but because you didn't need to. Your energy when you're whole is silent but strong. It's gentle but unshakable. You're not walking around demanding to be seen. You're seen because you don't need to be. You're not asking to be loved. You're loved because you've become love. That's the paradox of wholeness. The less you chase, the more you attract. The less you prove, the more you embody. The less you need, the more you receive. Because the universe doesn't respond to lack. It responds to alignment. And when you're aligned, when you're whole, when you're overflowing, you become a magnet for the kind of love, opportunities, and relationships that were always meant for you. Not because you forced it, but because you became it. When you stop chasing and start becoming, everything changes. This entire journey we've talked about, detachment, non-reactivity, silence, boundaries, mystery, wholeness. It's not about becoming colder or distant. It's about becoming stronger, wiser, and more grounded in who you truly are. Because the moment you stop depending on others to complete you, to validate you, or to rescue you, you begin to step into the power that was inside you all along. That quiet confidence, that unshakable peace, that ability to walk away from chaos without a word. These are not signs of emptiness. They are the markings of a person who has done the deep inner work. They are signs of someone who has faced their demons and come out whole on the other side. When you're no longer reactive, you're no longer controlled by others. You begin to respond from a place of clarity, not chaos. That calm in the storm, that self-mastery, it commands respect without ever demanding it. And when you live from that energy, people feel it. They may not understand it, but they notice it. And the right ones, they'll be drawn to it. Because true strength doesn't come from domination, it comes from discipline. Real attraction isn't about proving your worth. It's about being rooted in it. You radiate that when you're whole. You attract differently when you're no longer seeking. You move with a quiet power that says, I don't need you, but I welcome you if you're real. Setting boundaries isn't about shutting people out. It's about honoring your energy, your time, and your peace. It's about teaching others how to treat you without ever having to yell. And mystery, that's not manipulation. That's the natural result of not oversharing your soul with those who haven't earned the right to hold it. When people can't predict your every move, they're drawn to your presence. They wonder. They observe. And in that space of wonder, attraction is born. But not attraction to a performance, attraction to your authenticity. And from that space, you stop pulling people from a place of loneliness. You draw them in from a place of fullness. And they meet you at your level, or they move out of the way. In this life, the most attractive thing you can be is whole. Not perfect, not flashy, but whole. Whole in your spirit, whole in your purpose, whole in your boundaries and your peace. Because from wholeness, everything good flows. Love flows, respect flows, connection flows. And you no longer settle, you align. You no longer chase, you invite. That's where the power is. That's where the beauty is. And that's where your life truly begins to transform, not because you forced people to see your worth, but because you finally saw it for yourself. So stand tall, stay grounded, protect your peace, and keep becoming everything you were always meant to be. Thank you for listening. Stay strong, stay whole, and never forget, you don't have to chase what you can attract by being your authentic self. God bless you. Stay safe, stay powerful, and keep rising.